The day everything collapsed didn't start with yelling, it started with silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ears so hard you can hear your own heartbeat. The kind that makes you feel like the world already decided your fate and you're just late to finding out. I remember standing on a cracked concrete porch, my purse sliding down my arm, the afternoon sun too bright for what was about to happen. A door slammed behind me so hard the frame rattled. That sound still lives in my bones. A woman's voice, sharp, bitter, full of something rotten, cut through the air. "Take your mess and don't come back." Something hit the ground near my feet. A cloth bag, old, torn, stained like it had lived a hard life and didn't care who knew it. I didn't bend down right away. I couldn't. My legs felt hollow, like they'd forgotten what their job was. Inside that house was the man I had risked everything for. Inside that house was the future I thought I was walking into. And outside was me, alone. I'm telling you this now not because I'm proud, I'm not. I'm telling you because the truth doesn't soften with time, it just waits. My name is Danielle Brooks. I was 46 years old when I destroyed my own life thinking I was saving it. For almost 2 years, I lived a double existence. On the outside, I was a dependable wife, the kind people describe as solid. Inside, I was lonely in ways I didn't have language for yet, lonely in the quiet spaces, lonely in the pauses between conversations. Lonely even when someone sat right next to me. I thought loneliness was something that happened to people who were abandoned. I didn't know it could happen inside a marriage. And when someone finally looked at me like I mattered, really looked, I mistook attention for love. That mistake cost me everything. But I didn't know that yet. Standing on that porch, I kept my eyes on the bag like it might explode if I touched it. I could still hear the echo of the door slamming, still smell the stale air of the house I had just walked out of, still feel the way he wouldn't look at me when it mattered most. I told myself to breathe, one breath, then another. I picked up the bag. It was heavier than it looked. Inside, I expected forgotten clothes, a pair of shoes, something small and meaningless, something I could throw away later without thinking too hard. Instead, what I found inside that bag minutes later, sitting alone in my car, would unravel every lie I'd been told, every word, every promise, every moment I thought was real. That torn bag wasn't trash, it was a confession. And it was the moment I realized the truth had been watching me the entire time, while I was too busy running from myself to see it coming. If you think this story is about betrayal, you're only half right. Because the worst betrayal wasn't what someone did to me, it was what I did to the person who never stopped protecting me even after I broke him. And that comes next, before the door slammed, before the bag hit the ground. Before I learned how loud regret can be, there was a life that looked fine from the outside. I had been married for 11 years to a man named Caleb. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He didn't sweep me off my feet every day like the movies promised. But he was steady. The kind of steady you don't notice until it's gone. Caleb worked long hours as a systems analyst. Numbers, screens, deadlines, things I never fully understood but respected. He came home tired, shoulders heavy, eyes worn. We used to talk for hours when we were younger, about dreams, about places we wanted to visit, about kids we never ended up having. Somewhere along the way, those conversations thinned out, not vanished, just stretched thin. Dinner became quiet, TV filled the space where laughter used to live. We learned each other's routines better than each other's thoughts. People ask later, "Why didn't you say something?" I did, just not loudly and not often enough. Loneliness doesn't crash into you, it seeps. It waits until you stop fighting it, then tells you a story that feels true. I told myself Caleb didn't see me anymore, that he loved me, sure, but out of habit, that if I disappeared for a week, the house would barely notice. That story felt real, so I believed it. I joined a wellness studio near my job, nothing dramatic, just yoga, light training, a place to feel my body again instead of drifting through days half asleep. That's where Marcus entered my life. He wasn't what I expected, not overly charming, not smooth in an obvious way, just attentive. He remembered my name after one session, asked how my day was. Not the polite kind of asking, the kind where someone actually waits for the answer. "You ever notice how people stop asking once they think they already know you?" he said once, handing me a towel. I laughed, too quickly. He told me I had a calm energy, said I carried myself like someone who had given too much of herself away. That kind of observation gets under your skin when you're already cracked. I should have stepped back right then. Instead, I leaned in. The studio became my escape. Then the conversations did, then the texts, nothing physical at first, just words, compliments, someone noticing when I changed my hair. Someone saying, "You deserve more than feeling invisible." Those words landed softly, dangerously softly. At home, Caleb asked if I was okay. I said I was just tired, and that was the truth, just not the whole truth. The distance between us grew quietly, no fights, no screaming, just space, and someone else slowly stepping into it. I didn't call it betrayal yet, I called it feeling alive, but every story we tell ourselves has a cost. And I was about to pay it with interest. There's a moment before every mistake where your body knows the truth before your mind admits it. Mine came on a Tuesday evening. The studio was almost empty. The lights were dimmed, music low, that calm after the storm feeling hanging in the air. Marcus stayed back while everyone else left, said he had paperwork, said I could go. I didn't. We talked about nothing at first. Traffic, work, weather. Safe things. Then he said, "Can I be honest with you?" I nodded. That was my second mistake. "You don't look happy," he said. "Not the way someone should look when they go home." I felt it in my chest, that tight, painful recognition. The kind that makes you feel seen and exposed at the same time. "I am," I said quickly. "Happy, I mean." He didn't argue, didn't push, just tilted his head slightly and said, "Okay." That should have been the end of it. But silence followed, heavy, expectant. "I just think," he added softly, "that sometimes people stay where they're comfortable instead of where they're valued." The words wrapped around me, not loud, not aggressive, just planted. When he reached out and brushed his hand against mine, it felt like electricity and shame at the same time. I pulled back immediately. "I'm married," I said, my voice shook. "I know," he replied, no apology, no surprise, just truth. "I'm not asking you to be anything you're not ready to be." That sentence did something to me. It gave me permission without saying it out loud. I left that night telling myself nothing had happened, because technically nothing had, but emotionally. The line was already behind me. After that, the attention increased. Messages in the morning, check-ins during the day, compliments that felt personal instead of polite. "You're not invisible," he texted once. "You just forgot you matter." At home, Caleb was still kind, still consistent. Still unaware that another man knew what time I woke up, what songs made me emotional, what parts of my life felt empty. I hated myself for noticing how quiet the house felt after reading Marcus's messages. I hated how quickly my phone became something I guarded. Guilt tried to speak. I kept it quiet. "It's not physical," I told myself. "I haven't done anything. I'm allowed to have friends." But this wasn't friendship, it was emotional trespassing. The first time Marcus kissed me, it wasn't dramatic. No fireworks, no movie moment, just a pause too long. A breath too close, a decision made in half a second. I pulled away almost immediately, heart racing, hands shaking. "This can't happen," I said. He nodded, calm, almost gentle. "I don't want to hurt you." That was the lie that settled everything. Because someone who truly doesn't want to hurt you doesn't keep standing where you're most vulnerable. I went home that night and stood in the shower until the water ran cold. I scrubbed my skin like I could wash the choice away. Caleb asked how my class was. "Good," I said. That was the moment I stopped being honest with everyone. And once you cross that line, even just a little, it gets easier to step farther the next time. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to ruin my marriage. It happened the way erosion happens, quiet, gradual, unnoticed until something collapses. After that kiss, I told myself I'd pull back, set boundaries, be an adult about it. I even avoided the studio for a week, finding excuses to stay home, to reconnect, to remind myself of the life I already had. Caleb noticed the change. He smiled more, asked if I wanted to cook together. Suggested we watch an old movie we used to love. For a moment, I almost believed it was enough. Almost. But loneliness doesn't disappear just because someone reaches out. It lingers if it's been fed too long. When I went back to the studio, Marcus didn't bring up the kiss. He didn't need to. He just acted normal, respectful, friendly. That made it worse, because it let me pretend everything was under control. We started talking more outside the studio, long messages late at night. Voice notes when typing felt too slow. He asked about my childhood, my fears, the parts of myself I hadn't shared with Caleb in years, not because he wouldn't listen, but because I'd stopped trying to explain. You carry everyone else's weight, Marcus said once. Who carries yours? That question stuck with me. Soon we were meeting for coffee, then lunch, always harmless on the surface, always justified. He never told me outright to leave my husband. He didn't have to, he just painted pictures. Don't you wonder what it would feel like, he said one afternoon, to come home to someone who's excited to see you? Someone who chooses you every day, I nodded, too easily. At home, the guilt started keeping me awake. I'd lie next to Caleb, listening to his breathing, wondering how someone could be so close and so far at the same time. I told myself I was protecting him by not telling the truth. That ignorance was kinder than honesty. That was another lie. Months passed. The emotional affair became something else without a clear starting point. Hotels in nearby towns. Carefully chosen restaurants. A second phone charger kept hidden in my car. I hated myself for how good it felt to be wanted. Marcus was patient in a way that felt loving. He praised my strength. Called me beautiful when I felt invisible, told me I deserved happiness without conditions. You've given enough, he said once, brushing my hair behind my ear. It's your turn now. I clung to that sentence like a life raft. What I didn't see, what I refused to see, was how often he talked about timing, about how things couldn't stay this way forever, about how secrets eventually demand payment. You can't live half a life, he said. Not without losing yourself. By then, I was already lost, and the scariest part, I started imagining a future without Caleb, and it didn't terrify me the way it should have. Not yet. That fear would come later, much later. And by then, it would be too late to turn back. Marcus didn't change all at once. That's what made it so hard to notice. At first, he was still the same calm voice, patient smile, that steady way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the room. But beneath that softness, something else started to grow. Not anger, not jealousy, expectation. It slipped into conversations quietly. How long do you think you can keep doing this? What does your future actually look like? Do you ever think about what we're building or not building? I'd brush it off. Laugh, say I needed time, say things were complicated. He'd nod, always nod, but the questions kept coming. I started feeling like I was failing him, like my hesitation was a flaw. Like my loyalty, what little of it I had left was somehow cruelty. One night, sitting across from him in a hotel room that smelled like cheap soap and regret, he said something that shifted everything. I don't want to be your secret anymore. The words landed heavy. I didn't ask for this, he continued. I didn't plan to fall for you, but I did, and it hurts knowing you go home to someone else every night. I felt defensive. Guilty, cornered. You knew I was married, I said. I know, he replied softly. And I waited. I've been patient, but patience isn't the same as forever. That was the first time he made it sound like I owed him something. I went home that night restless, heart pounding, thoughts spiraling. Caleb was asleep on the couch, glasses still on his face, work laptop open beside him. He looked exhausted, worn down by a life he kept showing up for. I stood there watching him and felt nothing. That scared me more than guilt ever had. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's tone sharpened just enough to sting. If you wanted to, you would. Comfort isn't love. I'd never take you for granted the way he does. Each sentence chipped away at something inside me. I started noticing Caleb's flaws with new eyes, how quiet he was, how predictable, how safe. Safe began to feel like a cage. When Marcus talked about a future, it was vivid, mornings together, shared plans. A life where I wasn't an afterthought. I didn't realize then how carefully those images were planted. One evening, after a long silence between us at dinner, Marcus finally said it. I can't do this much longer. My heart raced. Do what? Wait, he said. Wait for you to choose. There it was, the word hanging between us like a threat. Choose, as if love were a fork in the road instead of 1,000 quiet decisions made over years. I asked for time again. He didn't argue, just leaned back, eyes distant. I hope you don't wait until it's too late, he said. That night, lying beside Caleb, staring at the ceiling, I realized something painful. I wasn't afraid of losing Marcus. I was afraid of facing the life I'd already broken. And fear has a way of pushing you toward the wrong door, especially when someone is standing there holding it open. I didn't decide to leave my marriage in a single moment. It happened in pieces. In the pauses between arguments that never happened, in the quiet dinners where neither of us asked real questions, in the way Marcus's voice sounded steadier than my own thoughts. The night I finally said it out loud to myself, it felt less like a decision and more like surrender. Caleb was rinsing dishes at the sink, sleeves rolled up, water running. A normal night, the kind of night that used to feel like home. "We don't talk anymore," I said suddenly. He turned, surprised. "We're talking now." I shook my head. "You know what I mean." He dried his hands slowly, buying time. "Okay," he said, "then tell me what's wrong." The words pressed against my throat, begging to come out. "There's someone else. I feel invisible. I don't know how to come back from what I've done." Instead, I chose the easier truth. "I'm unhappy." His face fell just a little. "I didn't know it was that bad." "It's been bad for a while." He reached for me. I stepped back. That movement did more damage than any sentence could have. "We talked for hours." He offered counseling. Time off work, trips, effort, real effort. He was willing to fight. I wasn't, and I hated myself for that. The next morning, Marcus called. I hadn't told him anything yet, but somehow he knew something had shifted. "You sound different," he said. "I think I'm ready," I replied, before I fully understood what that meant. The following weeks blurred together: lawyers, paperwork, quiet tears in parked cars. Caleb didn't yell, didn't beg after that first night. He just moved carefully, like someone walking through broken glass. When the divorce was finalized, I felt relief. That should have scared me more than it did. Marcus was thrilled, said all the right things. Promised all the right futures, told me the hard part was over. "You're free now," he said. I believed him. The day after everything became official, I drove to his place with my heart full of hope. I thought I was walking into the beginning of my real life. I didn't know I was walking into the end of a lie. The door opened. The smile wasn't there. And behind him stood someone who had already decided I didn't belong. That's when the story stopped being about love and started being about truth. The house didn't feel warm. That was the first thing I noticed. Not cold exactly, just stiff, like it didn't want me there. Marcus stepped aside to let me in, but he didn't pull me close. No hug, no kiss on the cheek, just space. I told myself not to overthink it. In the living room sat a woman I'd only heard about in passing, his mother, Evelyn. She was smaller than I expected, hair pulled tight, posture sharp, eyes alert in a way that made you feel measured, not curious, judging. "So this is her," she said, not looking at Marcus, looking straight at me. I smiled, nervous. "Hi, I'm Danielle." She didn't return it. "How old are you?" she asked. The question hit wrong, but I answered, 46. "And you were married?" she continued. "Yes." "For how long?" 11 years. She made a sound in her throat, half laugh, half scoff. "And you left him?" The room went quiet. Marcus shifted. "Mom, no," she said sharply. "I want to hear her say it." I swallowed. "Yes, I did." Evelyn leaned back like she just confirmed something she already knew. "So you cheat, then you leave. That's your pattern." "That's not fair," I said, heat rising in my chest. "You don't know me." "I know enough," she replied. "A woman who abandons a good man will abandon anyone." I looked at Marcus. I waited for him to step in, to correct her, to defend me. He didn't. "Mom's just worried," he said quietly. That hurt more than her words. Evelyn stood up and walked toward me slowly. "You think you're special because my son paid attention to you?" she asked. "You think you're different?" "I didn't plan this," I said, my voice shaking. "None of it was planned." She smiled then, but it wasn't kind. "It never is." Marcus finally spoke. "Maybe this isn't the best time." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Maybe you should go just for tonight." Something inside me cracked. "I gave up my marriage," I said. "My home, my life, for us." Evelyn laughed, actually laughed. "That was your choice." She disappeared down the hall and came back carrying something small and worn, a cloth bag, torn, stained. She dropped it at my feet. "Your things," she said. "Take them and leave." I stood there, frozen. Marcus said nothing, not one word. When I finally bent down and picked up the bag, it felt heavier than it should have. I didn't know yet what was inside, but I knew deep in my chest that whatever it was would change everything. And as the door slammed behind me, one truth settled in: I had burned my past for a future that never existed. I didn't drive away right away. I couldn't. I sat in the car with my hands locked around the steering wheel, staring at the front door like it might open again, like Marcus might run out and tell me this was all a misunderstanding. Like someone would stop the world and rewind the last 10 minutes. The door never opened. The bag sat on the passenger seat. Ugly, ordinary, heavy in a way that made my chest feel tight. I drove without thinking. Ended up in a quiet park a few miles away, parked under a tree with yellowing leaves, and turned the engine off. The silence rushed back in, louder than before. "Get it together," I whispered to myself. My hands were shaking as I picked up the bag. I expected clothes, a sweater, a pair of shoes, evidence that I had existed in that house at all. What I found instead made my breath catch. At the top was a small leather booklet, dark blue, clean. New, my name was printed on it. I opened it slowly. Numbers stared back at me, too many of them, too big to make sense. An account in my name, the balance made my vision blur. I closed it, opened it again, same number. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real." Underneath were papers, official-looking, crisp, folded carefully, property documents, one for a house, paid in full, another for a small commercial space, all in my name. I felt dizzy. My ears rang. None of this belonged to me. I hadn't bought anything, I hadn't signed anything. At the bottom of the bag was a prepaid phone, old, cheap, and a sealed envelope. I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. Caleb. My hands shook so badly I had to rest the letter against the steering wheel to read it. The first line took the air right out of my lungs. "If you're reading this, then things happened exactly the way I thought they would." I read the letter once. Then again, each word hit harder than the last. Caleb knew. He had known for a long time, longer than I could bear to imagine. He wrote about discovering the affair early, about watching me drift away, about learning who Marcus really was and who his mother had helped him become. He wrote about women before me, patterns, lies, destruction done slowly and deliberately. And then came the part that broke me. While I was sneaking around, while I was choosing someone else, Caleb had been protecting me, saving money, buying property, making sure that no matter how badly I fell, I wouldn't be ruined, not because I deserved it, but because he loved me. I folded the letter and pressed it to my chest as sobs tore out of me, loud and ugly and unstoppable. I cried until my throat burned, until my head ached, until the truth settled into every part of me. The man I betrayed had been the only one telling me the truth without ever saying a word. And the man I chose, he never loved me at all. That bag wasn't punishment, it was mercy. And realizing that hurt more than losing everything else combined. I stayed in that car until the sun dipped low and the sky turned the color of bruises. I didn't call anyone, didn't drive anywhere, didn't even cry anymore. I just sat there holding the letter like it might dissolve if I let go. Caleb never raised his voice, never exposed me, never tried to win. He simply watched me walk toward a fire and built a shelter where I'd land. That was the part I couldn't escape. Love that doesn't beg, love that doesn't chase, love that protects even after it's been rejected. I eventually drove to the house listed in the documents. The keys were in the bag. I didn't feel excitement opening the door, no joy, no victory, just emptiness. The house was quiet, too quiet. My footsteps echoed like I didn't belong there yet. I sat on the floor back against the wall and read Caleb's letter one last time. He didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't ask for me back, didn't even ask me to understand him. He just wanted me safe. That night, I slept on the floor with nothing but the letter folded under my pillow like a confession I couldn't undo. Weeks later, Marcus disappeared like I never existed. No calls, no explanations, no apology, just absence. And somehow that was fitting, because the truth didn't come with drama. It came quietly, like a door closing, like a bag hitting concrete, like a man loving me enough to let me go. I don't tell this story to ask for sympathy. I tell it because some lessons only arrive after everything familiar burns down. If you're listening to this and you feel seen by someone new while growing invisible to someone steady, pause. Attention isn't love. Intensity isn't truth. And excitement can be the loudest lie of all. I lost a good man chasing a feeling, but his kindness saved me from losing myself completely. Some endings don't come with closure, they come with silence. And you spend the rest of your life learning how to live honestly inside it. If this story made you stop and think even for a second, then it did its job. Somewhere right now, someone is being pulled toward attention that feels like love and away from a loyalty that feels boring. If that's you, pause, because once a door closes, not every silence can be undone. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe for more real emotional stories that don't just entertain, they warn, they heal, and they stay with you. Thumbs up like this video if you believe real love protects even when it's rejected. Speech balloon comment below. Have you ever confused attention for love or silence for safety? Your story might help someone else before it's too late, and if you're still here, thank you for listening.